Hello, Algebra 2 students. Today we are going to do 1.3 and 1.4 notes. Let's start off with some vocabulary. A linear equation is an equation of a straight line. Later on in Chapter 2, we will graph linear equations. A solution is a number or numbers, depending on if you have multiple solutions. A number that when substituted for the variable results in a true statement. Now we're ready to do examples. So all of these that we're doing are linear equations. Example number 1, we want to solve for the variable x. So we want to know what the solution will end up being. So for these particular equations in this section, we want to do PEMDAS backwards. When you're simplifying expressions, you use PEMDAS forward, but when you're solving an equation, we do it backwards. So we add or subtract left to right, and then we multiply, divide left to right. The parentheses, exponents, that really doesn't have to do much with solving equations unless you have the distributive property, and then you would multiply things out. So in this particular case, for example 1, we want to add 7 to both sides before we even mess with the fraction, because that comes first. So 2/3 x. Notice my fraction bar is a horizontal bar, and that's what you should do. You should not make them diagonal. You'll be confusing later. Okay, and the next thing you want to do is get rid of that fraction. And the only way we can do that is to multiply by the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 2/3 is 3/2. And what you do to the left side of the equation, you do to the right side. And it makes sense here to just write 12 as 12/1, so you know to multiply straight across. Students often don't do that, and then they end up multiplying 12 times 2 instead of 12 times 3. So on the left side, um, the 3's cancel, the 2's cancel, and you're left with x. And on the right side, we have 36 divided by 2, which is x equals 18. That is your solution. In example 2, your total cost for a book, including 6% sales tax, is $23.32. What was the price of the book before taxes? So the first thing we want to do is write 6% as a decimal. So that's 0.06. Take the decimal sign off, or I'm sorry, take the percent sign off and then move the decimal point 2 places to the left. There you go. Here's what we do for this one. We could write a verbal statement and then go into writing an equation. So the sales tax plus the cost of the book, or price of the book, I guess. So price of the book equals total cost. So to find the sales tax on anything that you're buying, you always take the original price and you multiply it by the sales tax as a decimal. So the sales tax is 0.06, so 0.06, times the price of the book, which we don't know, so we'll call it P. That's just the sales tax. Plus, once you figure out what that is, even if it's $2, $3, you have to tack it on to the price of the book. So the price of the book is P, and that'll give you the total cost, and the total cost is $23.32. So it really makes sense to write a verbal statement first and then write your equation using variables. So 0.06 times P is 0.06P. Oops, sorry. we can go ahead and add those. Now remember, this is 1, so 1p plus 0.06p is 1.06p equals 23.32. Now, our last step, to get rid of the 1.06 times p, you want to divide both sides by 1.06. P equals, and I would use a calculator to do 23.32 divided by 1.06, and you get P equals 22. And that means the price of the book is $22. All right, example 3. This is when it gets really fun. I love solving equations, especially equations with variables on both sides. So the whole goal is to get the variable on one of the sides, but we have to work on each side of the equation. So I'm going to work on the left side of the equal sign first. We want to distribute here. So 4 times 2x is 8x. 4 times negative 9 is negative 36. Be really careful and always use arrows if it helps you. Plus 5x equals, and now I'm going to distribute on the right side, so it's negative 30. Again, be very careful. Negative 3 times, remember, you're not multiplying times the negative x. Well, you are, but you're multiplying by the negative 1 that's in front of it. So negative 3 times negative 1 is a positive 3, and then attach your x. And now you just have to decide which side do you want your variables on? Do you want it on the left side or the right side? Well, you want to combine like terms first. So I'm going to use my highlighter feature, and I know that these two are like. And so I'm going to combine them. I can't combine them with the 3x on the other side because it's on a different side of the equal sign. So so that's 13x minus 36 equals negative 30 plus 3x. Now I see that 3x is smaller than 13x, so I want to move the 3x to the side that the 13x is on. So you want to undo the plus 3x by subtracting 3x on both sides. 10x minus 36 equals negative 30. Now we want to get the numbers on the opposite side. So our variable's on the left side, so we want to add 36 to both sides. You don't want to add 30 because then you're getting the numbers and variables all on the same side. 10x equals a positive 6. Divide by 10. Here's what bugs me when students say the answer is 6/10. Why don't they take the additional little bitty step to simplify it? So divide top and bottom by 3. Or I'm sorry, top and bottom by 2, and x equals 3/5. Okay, rounding out the first page, we are going to do a word problem. It takes you 45 minutes to mow your lawn, and it takes your brother 30 minutes to mow the lawn. How long does it take you to mow the lawn if you have 2 mowers and work together? So it takes you 45 minutes to mow your lawn. So one lawn takes you 45 minutes. For your brother, it takes him one lawn to do 30 minutes, or in 30 minutes. How long does it take you to mow the lawn if you have 2 mowers and work together? So the question is how long? So your time t. So we know that we have to multiply this by t, and then it's asking you how long does it take you to do it together. So you're adding this, and together your goal is to mow the lawn. So you have one lawn. And we have an equation here with fractions. So there's a way that we have to get rid of it. So without any units, I'm just going to write this equation as 1 over 45 times t plus 1 over 30 times t equals 1. And the way to get rid of the fraction is to multiply by the smallest number that's divisible by both 45 and 30, and that number happens to be 90. So you're going to multiply 1/45 times 90, and that would give you 2, because 45 goes into 90 twice. So 2t plus 1/30th times 90 is 3, because 30 goes into 90 3 times. Attach your t, equals, and then 1 times 90 is 90. You have to multiply every number in your equation by 90. And then this is easy. 5t equals 90. Divide by 5. Both sides. T equals 18. So 18 minutes is how long it'll take both to work together to mow one lawn. Right, now let's go to example 5. Solve the formula distance equals rate times time for t. Then find the time it takes to travel 312 miles at an average rate of 45 miles per hour. So these last two examples come from section 1.4. In that particular section, you solve for different variables. So these are called literal equations when they have two or more variables. So I called the distance equals rate times time as my dirt formula, and that's easy for students to remember that d is on one side of the equal sign and rt are on the other side of the equal sign. So we want to solve for t. So I'm going to write d equals rt here. And you want to get t by itself. So in order to get t by itself, you must divide both sides by r. Now, why don't you subtract or add? Because this means r times t. And when it's r times t and you want to undo it, you have to divide. So when you divide both sides by r, you get t equals d over r. So you got t by itself. Now let's use that equation to find the time it takes to travel 312 miles at an average rate of 48 miles per hour. So I'm going to rewrite that equation that I boxed. I like to have my t on the left side. And then I'm going to replace d with 312 miles and r with 48. And then I'll divide both of those and that'll give me t. So 312 divided by 48 happens to be 6.5. So T is 6.5 hours. And our last couple of equations, another word problem. Solve the formula area equals 1/2 times base 1 plus base 2 times the height for B2. So our goal is to solve for this variable. Then find the length of the other base of a trapezoid if the length of one base is 13 centimeters, the height is 10 centimeters, and the area is 105 square centimeters. So this is A, capital A. Height is 10 centimeters, so that's H. One of the bases is 13, so that's one base, and we have to find the other base. So we know that, so now let's go ahead and let's go ahead and solve the equation for B2. So I'm going to write my equation. And the first thing that you want to do is get rid of the fraction. That is the first thing you should do in this particular problem. And the reason why is if you look at the right side, it's all multiplying. 1/2 times B1 plus B2 times H. It's three things being multiplied. So we can multiply by the reciprocal of 1/2 to get rid of the fraction. And do that to this side as well. Okay, so on the right side, we just have 2a, or I'm sorry, on the left side. On the right side, 2's cancel, 1's cancel, and you're left with, I'm going to put the h in front. Doesn't matter if you do or don't. And that's what you have at this point. The next thing we can do is, we're still multiplying h times all that junk in parentheses, so you can divide both sides by h to get rid of the h. This one's a little tougher problem. Okay, so we have 2a over h equals b1 plus b2. And now we can finally solve for B2 by just moving B1 to the other side. Since these are adding, we want to undo the positive B1 by subtracting B1 on both sides. And so our final answer is, and it doesn't matter what you write first. I'll write the 2a over h minus b1 equals b2. B sub 2. These cancel. That's cancel to 0. So now we are going to use this equation to solve for b2. Okay, so, or either one. We know one of the bases and we need to find the other base. So let's go ahead and plug in everything. So 2 times your area is 105, divided by h, which is 10, minus b1, which is 13, is equal to b2. So that's 2 times 105, which is 210, divided by 10, minus 13, equals b sub 2. 210 divided by 10 is just 21. How do I know so fast? Because the zeros cancel, and 21 divided by 1 is 21. Minus 13 equals b sub 2. 21 minus 13 is 8. So 8 is b sub 2, so the other length is 8 centimeters. Put your units if the problem talks about units. That one was a tough one. All right, our last one is something we are going to do so often in chapter 2, and that is solve an equation for the variable y. This is a linear equation, and the first thing we're asked is to solve for y. So I'm going to write the equation, and I want y by itself. Everything else should be moved to the other side. So if we want everything else moved to the other side, the first thing we want to do is subtract 5x. Don't put the subtracting 5x underneath the 8. Put it out to the side because it has a variable. So 5x minus 5x is 0. 3y equals. Now here, later on, you'll learn in chapter 2 that you want your x term first. So I'm going to put the negative 5x first. Then I'm going to put the plus 8. Notice it's a plus 8 and not a minus 8. Our final step to get y alone is to divide everything by 3. When I say everything, I mean everything. So that by 3, that by 3. 3's cancel. Y equals. This is ugly, but you don't divide negative 5.3 and call it negative 1.666. I mean, you just don't do that. You leave it as a fraction. That's simplified. And notice the x should be in the numerator or it should be floating like this. It should never be in the denominator. Plus 8/3. And again, leave 8/3 the way it is. And that is your equation for y. Now let's do part 2. Then find y when x equals negative 5. So we are going to substitute wherever we see an x with a negative 5. That's why it's really important to put in the numerator instead of even floating, because you know x is in the numerator. Plus 8/3. So negative times a negative is a positive. And at this point, just add 25 plus 8 is 33. And don't make the mistake of adding the denominators. That just stays the same. So y equals 11. And those are your notes for today. Have a great day, Algebra 2 students.